Imtiaz Ali's Chamkila was a glittering spectacle with a beating heart. Kabir Singh Chowdhry's Mehsampur, on the other hand, which he made in 2018, left me feeling unsettled. Perhaps because Mehsampur's universe has no varnish. It engages with the lives of Chamkila's associates, Sonia, Kesar Singh Tikki, and Lal Chand, but it doesn't really tell us their story or his. It looks at them through the gaze of a self obsessed filmmaker. This is a sparse, surreal, haunting, naked, and deeply introspective film about the purpose of art. It asks if cinema should glorify the maker at all, or exploit the living and commodify death for profit. Mehsampur came in 2018, as I said, but Kabir's struggle to make a full length feature on Chamkila continues. In this chat, this independent filmmaker shares the reason why Chamkila's story continues to have such a hold on him. Kabir Singh Chowdhry, welcome to my space. And I discovered Mehsampur a few weeks ago, and you had shared an article with me about it. And one line that stayed with me from that article was that Mehsampur is a meta commentary on the art of exploitation and the exploitation of art and the commodification of death. And it made me think in a very new way about the intentionality behind biopics and why they are made. And the film also left me with a lot of questions, and some of which I'm going to ask you today. And the first one, of course, is the most obvious one, that you started making this film in 2018, much before the recent biopic
At
came out.
2015 is when we went out to do research for the film,
Okay.
and the film was actually not what has turned out. That was more a side experiment from the main story we wanted to
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah.
The actual monster is something called Lal Pari, which still hasn't got made.
Yeah.
Basically, the research for Chamkila and the space that we wanted to get into started in 2015. Then I happened to meet a producer who wanted to give some finance to me to make a short film.
Yeah.
But I'm obsessed with this space that I kind of like made Mehsampur, which prelude, to Lal Pari. Came about from that. Mm, And we shot in 2016, and since it was an independent film, I had to work also on other projects and kind of collect money to put into this project. So eventually, like we finished it in 2018 with
18.
post.
Yeah. So this the film is like, correct me if I'm wrong. It's a kind of an exploration of the myth and reality of Chamkila's life and his death. But what I wanted to know was, like you said, it kind of uh, you were kind of obsessed with this story. Why so many years after Chamkila's death? You also shared that you had nightmares about his death. What was it about this story that seeped into you to this extent?
I mean, like it's part of like our cultural upbringing, the music. So I shared it with my friend who's also a collaborator with me, Akshay Singh, about Chamkila, and um, we thought it's a great starting point, just an artist kind of dying right before he goes on stage, knowing that he has these threats around him. So someone dying for his art seemed very romantic to us. So we kind of like went on that quest, and the more deeper and deeper we went into research, we were fascinated by the whole space. So when I took the only person who survived the assassination was Lal Chand, shot, and he's the only one who sort of like survived. So he had this trauma around the whole, being a survivor kind of thing. So when I took him to Mehsampur as part of my research, there was this dholak that we figured existed,
Hmm.
and which he threw into the fields and a combine harvester picked up.
Hmm.
So we went on a search for this dholak, but then when I went back and we started developing Lal Pari, I kept having these nightmares of different instruments in Mehsampur post the assassination many years later, kind of being fused with nature.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I fused with the tree, or like a harmonium stuck and fossilized, and a dholak almost like inside a banyan tree, like an eye.
Hmm.
So all this kind of stuck with me, and that was sort of the genesis of Mehsampur, like
Right.
um, justify that image that I want to reach.
Yeah. But what I found to be very interesting was that it is not so much an exploration of his music or how he died, but also the intentionality of the maker as he chases this story, as if and he believes that it's never been told before. Is this
Completely.
the way you approached that? The character or the protagonist of the filmmaker is the protagonist, not Chamkila, so to speak. So was this a comment on the kind of filmmaking that, as this article said, commodifies lived experiences and depth?
Completely. Like I come from a background of anthropology and visual anthropology. So we're kind of sensitized on how to use like technology, and how to kind of like meet people, your subject who you're kind of basing your story on. So
Hmm.
I spent with them, many other people, apart from the characters in the film. And sort of, I felt like I started imagining how someone from Bombay or who's
Hmm.
doing it as a very commercial project would come. And he would come for a very limited period of time. He wouldn't come for like just going
Yeah,
in for the love of exploration.
yeah,
And how like he might write sensitive lines on paper, but his methodology might not be that.
yeah.
Uh, so I kind of like wanted to draw on that aspect basically.
Especially
On
there's
how
this scene where he wants Kesar Singh Tikki to throw the stone again and again and again, you know?
just that love that a lot of filmmakers have for authenticity, like just to be authentic. So Devrath in the film, the filmmaker, is like a reconstruction junkie, so to speak. Uh, so it sort of came from that, and also the camera being like such a weapon. Like it's also marketed in that way. Like you aim, you focus, and you shoot. So
Hmm.
similar, a gun is also like that. And
Right.
even clothes a camera person wears is almost like the battle fatigue.
Hmm.
Like you pockets and cargo pants and like
Hmm.
batteries and extra film,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff. But sort of came from, yeah, to explore that aspect.
Right, right. You also spoke to, as you said, Lal Chand and Kesar Singh Tikki and Sonia as well. What was their first reaction when they approached, when you approached them? And was it the first time that anybody had asked them their side of the story?
They are like very popular. Like there have been enough YouTubers and enough like interest towards these people, and they're very committed to the arts also. Like they're always participating in Chamkila's Barsi that takes place in March.
Hmm.
So they're very much in the view, but they're not leading such great lives, post Chamkila.
Hmm.
There's a sense of Dal, it was difficult for him to get by,
Hmm.
in terms of money and all. But it was, yeah, it was like great meeting them and kind of like spending that kind of time with them. No, it wasn't like I was on a mission to extract information,
Right,
but
right.
it was more I'm going out and hanging out with them in their daily lives, living with them.
Hmm.
eating with them, traveling with them around
Yeah.
the state.
Has Lal Chand passed away recently? Because I saw tributes.
Passed away a few years back, actually, during COVID.
Oh,
Uh, Singh Tikki passed away this year in January.
oh, okay.
I think around the same time, like even Sonia passed away.
Do you think that Lal Puri will ever be made, or has the story that you wanted to tell has been appropriated by the recent biopic? Do you
No,
feel?
no, I don't think it's been appropriated. It was my fear that um, but Lal Pari has a completely different perspective, like
Hmm. You, okay,
it doesn't. Yeah. Chamkila's more like in the background. He's a secondary character in the film.
okay. Okay. Would you make it? And are you thinking about making it? Will it be made?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been struggling to get it made because, like, a lot of producers were interested in it. They loved the script, but it's always like a question of like big fish versus small fish,
Right.
So, so we will eventually make it. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's we have the script ready, and I don't want it to kind of rot.
Right. You've also mentioned that you crossed paths with Chamkila, one of Chamkila's killers. Uh, is there anything that you can talk about that meeting?
I mean, one can't say because like it's alleged, like there's so many people like Tiki in his drunkenness told me a lot of things. But I feel like usually people, like they spend half their lives sleeping
Hmm.
and half their lives kind of lying. They don't tell the truth.
Hmm.
So nothing taken like that. Like, okay, like I did meet someone who said he was one of the shooters, but again, like you can't be sure.
Hmm. Hmm. You also like straddled so many different worlds in terms of narrative spaces. You've done art design for commercial films like Wake Up Sid and Cooking with Stella and Dostana. And then you've also done, you were a creative producer for Mukti Bhavan, right? And you've also collaborated with Neelam and made some cinematic adaptations of her plays like Black Box and
Trunk tales,
Trunk
trunk
Tales.
tales.
Uh, uh, do you get sometimes a sense of disorientation that now I'm here and now I'm here? I mean, do the narrative styles clash sometimes because these are very different worlds to inhabit for a creative person.
I mean, it's the world of art, so like it comes under that space. Like art direction, I did initially because I wanted to, after studying, like kind of make an entry into the film industry.
Hmm.
And I was figuring out of ways on how to make films, how to get my films made. So I ended up like being an art director because that seemed like the most fun space to occupy also,
Hmm.
rather than stuck as an assistant director doing paperwork
Hmm.
or planning. Though I have done that much later, but it sort of like became like my way of making my entry point, and then since I was in Bombay, so it also helped look after my finances at that point.
Right.
So after maybe 5, 6 years of doing that, I just felt like I was stuck in that space of just being a art director.
Hmm.
So I felt like I need to get out of it because I want to make films. And yeah, so then I started my own company and started producing, writing, directing, and when it comes to like editing, I edit also for people.
Yeah.
Um, so I just feel like it's different facets of filmmaking, and you need to be in the know of everything.
Hmm.
of every sort
Ah,
of aspect of it, kind of eventually even control your own visions, you know.
hmm.
So theater turning into something cinematic came because of COVID. No one was coming to the
Yes.
theaters. It kind of like came from that.
Hmm.
Um,
You
then I
know,
do other work. I
you
do other work for theater, but I feel like there's a lot of learning in everything, you know.
right. Is there anything new that you're working on right now that we can hope to see in the near future in any
Yeah,
capacity?
I did two films during like as speed exercises where I wrote them in 6 days and uh, shot them in 9 days and edited them in 1 week. These are both feature films, so I did both these experiments, and then I got stuck in like just different projects, you know. So I'll at some point get them out. I'll share the links with you, like the trailers and stuff of that. Rest, I'm planning a film this year. We'll probably shoot this winter,
Okay.
and
What kind of a space is it set? If you can talk about it, please.
I can talk about it that it's set in like Punjab, where these big landlords keep slaves, you know,
Hmm.
kind of like modern day slavery that exists, you know.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's around that kind of space.
You've discussed in the interviews that you've given about Chamkila, you've discussed about how so many factors complicated his story, like his caste identity, the fact that he uh, challenged certain societal norms with his songs. Also, the atmosphere of insurgency, everything kind of came to a boiling point together. Uh, as a filmmaker, do you think that, or a storyteller, in the context of what is happening today in India, how much of that informs what you do? Uh, the politics, the around human rights and who has more access to privilege and who has less. Do these questions bother you when you're writing something? Do they get into your work to some extent?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you can't escape, you know, no person is like living in a vacuum kind of space. So those generally just somehow seep into your work, you know. You don't have to try too hard.
Yeah.
Like the material you're working with is so sensitive that you can't afford to lie either, you know, in a way.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it all kind of seeps in. Like Chamkila's space is a little complex. That's what people think. Like they think of it as a mystery because they just want like one reason that led to the assassination. But there can be like 10 different things that lead to one thing, you know.
Hmm.
So, so I feel like it's just a question of like keeping your eyes open and sort of like seeing what's around you, you know.
Yeah. But as a filmmaker, don't you think that the more reductionist you are, the more popular you become, uh, more accessible also to the audience? Do you think that? Because the more, in Chamkila's story, if you were to address all the complicated aspects of his story, it will become really dense. It won't.
Mehsampur, like a lot of people approached me like in the middle of the film wanting to finance it, you know, at different stages of post production. But they wanted to even participate in the artistic vision, you know. So that's something I didn't want. Like I would have made money, it would have released also, but it's something I stayed away from because I wanted to have like the final cut
Hmm.
and authorship for the work basically. Just something like I wanted to do with that particular project. Keep it away from, if someone was to offer me money, and give me like final cut, I would agree to that. But that wasn't happening. Like they wanted to get Punjabi musicians to do item numbers
Hmm.
and whole bunch of other stuff. It didn't go match with my. It didn't match with what I wanted to do.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
fight for what you want to do also, no?
Right.
It's harder, it's a
Yeah.
much harder journey. Uh, that's where I'm at, like,
Yeah. But how hard
with,
is it for an independent maker to have a say in the final cut? I mean, what are your struggles right now? What do you grapple with as you think about starting a project?
yeah, just initially, money is a big aspect. So, like, there's that to start with. Every project is like that, basically. It's
Hmm.
as many projects I do, and even if they're successful, the next project is back to square one. It's a new beast, that you have to deal
Hmm. Hmm.
with money.
If people were to ask you where they can watch Mehsampur, where can they watch Mehsampur? Is it?
Mehsampur, you can buy a DVD from eBay.
Oh, is it?
Um,
But not,
there is a
it's not streaming anywhere, is it?
Yeah. Unfortunately, Mehsampur went into some problems with some fraudulent claims by an individual who got the censor certificate in their name and claimed ownership towards it. So
Hmm.
it was on Amazon Prime with IndiePix at one point, and it was on this other thing called 2B, and it was to be screened on as a curated piece on Mubi.
Okay.
So all the things, so we're in court to get our film back, and uh, hopefully we'll get it back in our name someday. So right now, what people have done is like they bought the DVDs in America
Hmm.
and made top, or it's available like online. There was some renewed interest with this film that came out, that because people had a memory of watching it in the big screen, in
Hmm.
various festivals. So they talked about it and they kind of like got hold of it and started watching it again. So that's why like there was some kind of new life towards the project. Yeah.
Right. Right. So we'll wait for the next one, and I'm sure it'll provoke more, thought and make us think a little more differently about a lot of things that we don't usually get to see in mainstream cinema. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing this, this experience with us. And thank you.
Right.
Hi, this is Rima, and if you liked what you just saw, then do like and subscribe because remember, this is a safe space for people to talk, share their stories, to hear each other, make some time in their busy lives for unboxed conversations.